My name is Kate Crozier, and I am one of the Project Willow team members. One of my roles in this project has been to explore the extent to which restorative justice offers options for safety, healing, and justice for unhoused women and gender diverse persons experiencing homelessness. While our surveys ask people about their thoughts about restorative justice, we recognize that most people in our community don't really know exactly what restorative justice is. And if they do, it's often filled with assumptions about it being about forgiveness or only being suitable for small acts of harm. So, in order for us to truly include the voices of people impacted by homelessness, we knew that we'd need to spend time with them exploring more about what ways restorative justice can look, what its values are, and how it can be applied before we can ask people to talk to us about where they think it could be a helpful option for them. Included in this presentation are a few of the quotes that we pulled from these listening sessions, and the one here on this cover page says, "I didn't even know that restorative justice was an option." And that really reinforced for us that providing some knowledge about what restorative justice is a really important beginning to this process. Participants were invited to the listening sessions and offered food, crafts, and gift cards for their time. People of all genders participated, though the only male identified folks were representatives from Aqua's peer worker staff. Peer workers are part of the Aqua team and are folks who have lived experience of being unhoused but are now employed. We had 3 participants from Mary's Place attend. We ran 2 sessions at Aqua, which included 4 peer workers, 6 women living in the tents behind the office at Aqua, and 2 staff. 1 participant joined us at Community Justice Initiatives, and we ran 1 session with 3 participants at Blockline. I chose the format of listening sessions for this part of the project. Listening sessions are a restorative way of learning. People meet in circle, and the facilitator offers some information to reflect on. In this case, I offered an overview of restorative justice, both its values and how it can be applied to prevent and respond to harm. Following this 10-minute presentation, I had 6 to 8 questions prepared for the participants to reflect on and share their thoughts with me. You can see these questions on the slide here. I was taught circle processes by Kate Pranis and Tanaga Myers. We use circle when we want to create a space that allows for participants to come together around difficult conversations and to build connections. Its structure ensures that people be able to have equal access to contributing, to be able to share something without being interrupted, and to be able to share without someone directly responding to one another. We find that this way of meeting allows for people to share more voluntarily and honestly. As a facilitator, it's a helpful way to avoid having a debate arise that can distract from people sharing with some vulnerability. All participants are invited to pass at any time. The next few slides are going to highlight some of the themes that came through the listening sessions. The ones noted on the slide are the themes that came through multiple times and were repeated by several individuals. What we asked, what did they like about restorative justice? And from lots of folks, we heard that they liked that it didn't involve the police. They liked the idea that restorative justice can create some women-only spaces to build community. That it wasn't about punishing people, instead about repairing relationships with peers and staff. And around pieces like this, we heard participants speak from 2 different lenses. We heard participants reflect on times they'd been victimized and times they'd caused harm, and they were able to talk about repairing relationships through both of those lenses. They acknowledged that it would be helpful to get answers about why a harm doer did what they did, that would give them some peace of mind. To have the chance to give or receive an apology, depending on their role in the harm, and to get support after jail. We heard a lot about how people after jail get very little support with their reintegration and often find themselves unhoused quickly after, even though they've been in the care of the province or the federal government for some time. Captured a few quotes from what the participants said. What they liked about restorative justice is it doesn't let us forget about what happened. It gives the victim a voice, and it could give me personally some closure into some of the aspects of my life. I want to know why they did it. I need to know these things, and for them to tell me, it can help me move on so that I don't have to keep dwelling on it. We also wanted to hear about what would concern folks about using restorative justice to address gender-based violence while being unhoused. People mentioned that they'd be concerned about cheap apologies that were more about manipulation. Would it be sincere? How would they know if it was authentic? Another participant talked about there being a culture in Cambridge of hating homeless folks, and how would we get community to be involved in this project? And it's true, community has an important role in restorative justice. Restorative justice involves a survivor, a harm doer, and the community, because we acknowledge that harm happens in a social context where the community holds some responsibility around root causes of crime and therefore is accountable to participating in addressing the impacts of it. We heard from one participant, I don't want to have to face my rapist. And even though just one person said those words, there was a feeling in one of the sessions that around sexual violence, that would be a very scary way of approaching the harm that happened to them. So we did a lot of talking around the idea that for people who've been harmed, they should have a choice on how that harm is addressed. They have a choice to call the police, to do nothing, to use restorative justice, to lean into their friends and social networks. Restorative justice would never dictate one way of addressing harm that happened. However, do acknowledge that restorative justice can be a helpful tool for sexual harm for those people who want to address it that way. And we heard from folks that their interest in using restorative justice would depend on circumstances, which makes a lot of sense. Some of the quotes we heard around folks' concerns about using restorative justice. We heard questions around where will the funding come from? It's a great idea, but is it realistic? One person said some things there is no healing from. And another participant said, and they wanted us to know that women will be wary of you. We've experienced a lot of people not giving a shit. You need to build a relationship with them before you can help them with their conflicts. We were curious, now that they knew a bit more about how restorative justice could address conflicts and also prevent harm from happening and support reintegration, where should we be thinking of applying this work? We heard a lot about the need for that in shelters. As stated before, there's peer-to-peer conflict, but also peer and staff conflict. So lots of possibilities there. We heard people mention soup kitchens, drop-in centers, tent city, schools, and on the streets. From our research, and also reiterated in this project, we heard a lot about where men are, there's a need for support addressing conflict and safety. We wanted to know what values should guide this work. We heard a lot from folks that they want people with lived experience involved in any restorative justice work that would happen. And the peer workers at Aqua, with that lived experience and at these listening sessions, offered a really interesting opportunity to get to feel out how it might be for peer workers to be involved with restorative justice work. They wanted to see respect and patience, collaboration, to have a choice to use it, and to consider everyone's safety. So the next steps in this project is to think about this feedback that we heard around where restorative justice can be a helpful intervention to support the safety and healing and justice needs of women who are unhoused. And so we have a few things underfoot. We're going to continue to work with Aqua, who is very eager to utilize several restorative justice practices. We're interested in exploring having a space that looks like our STRIDE program at Grand Valley Institution for Women, where we bring community volunteers and women together in a space to build relationships that will strengthen over time and can continue outside of that space where there's an agreement to do so. We want to consider training their peer workers in transformative mediation. In this 28-hour training, peer mediators would learn how to talk to people around case development in preparation for a dialogue around harm that happened. CJI also sees the possibility of running conflict coaching sessions for peer workers. And in these sessions, we'd be teaching like a train the trainer for people how to de-escalate their own conflicts, tools and practices to keep conflict being as constructive as possible. CJI is already involved in the Better Tent City, building relationships with residents there. And from this project, we know there's a need to continue to share information about restorative justice so that unhoused women and shelter staff can access it. I think there's all sorts of ways we can pursue this work by attending meetings, house meetings, staff meetings, meeting with folks one-on-one to let them know about what restorative justice is and the ways that they can reach out to access it when they need it. CJI needs to also continue to find ways to invite unhoused women into our office and learn how to respond to walk-ins as people are in crisis. We need to adapt our services so that those people who have barriers to calling to making appointments can get the support of CJI. However, the work around this project doesn't end there. And for those viewing this presentation, if you have an interest or a connection or an idea around where restorative justice can be helpful with the folks you know or work with, please do reach out, as we want to explore wherever there's energy or excitement to do great work. Thank you.